A night that changed everything. The crystal chandeliers of the Fairmont Hotel ballroom sparkled like captured stars, casting dancing shadows across the faces of San Francisco's elite. Jasmine Rivera adjusted the settings on her camera, her practiced eye searching for those unguarded moments that told the real story behind the glamorous facade. This was her 5th charity gala this month, and while the paychecks kept her small studio apartment affordable, she dreamed of the day when her photographs would hang in galleries. Rather than social media feeds, she captured an elderly couple laughing together, their hands intertwined after what must have been decades of marriage. That was the kind of love story she believed in, the kind that grew slowly and lasted forever. The kind that seemed increasingly rare in a world of swiping right and relationship status updates.
Excuse me.
Sorry, coming through, a deep voice said urgently from behind her. Before Jasmine could turn around, someone gripped her elbow gently but firmly. She spun to face a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine spread. Tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that fell just slightly across his forehead in that perfectly imperfect way. His gray suit fit him like it had been tailored specifically for his broad shoulders, and his blue eyes held a mixture of panic and determination that immediately caught her attention. "I need your help," he said quickly, glancing over his shoulder at the growing crowd of reporters pushing through the ballroom entrance. "Please, just go with it." "Go with what?" Jasmine barely got the words out before he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Time stopped. The chatter of the gala, the clicking of champagne glasses, the classical music floating through the air, all of it faded into white noise. His lips were soft, warm, and moved against hers with a confidence that made her knees weak. She should have pushed him away, should have been outraged at this stranger's audacity. Instead, her camera lowered to hang from its strap around her neck, and her free hand found its way to his chest. Feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath the expensive fabric, when they finally broke apart, both breathing harder than they should have been. The flash of cameras exploded around them like a lightning storm. Reporters shouted questions from every direction, their voices overlapping into an incomprehensible wall of sound. "Who is she, Nathaniel? Is this the mystery woman you've been hiding? When's the wedding?" Nathaniel. So that was his name. Jasmine's mind was still foggy from the kiss, trying to process what had just happened. The man, Nathaniel, kept his arm around her waist, his touch sending electricity through the thin fabric of her emerald dress. "Smile," he whispered in her ear, his breath warm against her skin. "I promise I'll explain everything. Just please help me get out of here." Something in his voice, a vulnerability beneath the commanding presence, made Jasmine nod. She'd spent years photographing people, learning to read emotions in the tilt of a head or the tension in a smile. This man wasn't a threat. He was desperate. She turned toward the cameras with a grace that surprised even herself. Slipping naturally into the role of mysterious girlfriend, her years of observing social events had taught her how these people moved, how they carried themselves. She channeled every elegant woman she'd ever photographed. "Gentlemen, please," Nathaniel said with practiced charm, though Jasmine could feel the tension in his body. "You know I don't discuss my personal life. Now, if you'll excuse us, we'd like to enjoy the evening." He guided her through the crowd with the skill of someone who'd spent his life navigating social situations. They moved past curious onlookers and envious glances until they reached a quiet hallway away from the main ballroom. Only then did he release her, stepping back and running a hand through his hair. "I am so sorry," he began, his confident facade cracking. "That was completely inappropriate, and I had no right to put you in that position. I just panicked and you were there, and I thought maybe if they believed I was with someone, they'd finally leave me alone and stop inventing scandals about my love life." Jasmine crossed her arms, trying to look stern despite her racing heart. "So you just kiss random strangers at charity events? That's your strategy?" "You're the first," he admitted, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. "I'm usually much better at planning things through. I'm Nathaniel Blake. I know who you are." She did. Everyone in San Francisco knew Nathaniel Blake, the tech entrepreneur who'd revolutionized cybersecurity and built a company worth billions before he turned 30. "I'm Jasmine Rivera, and I'm the photographer hired to capture tonight's event." which means I'm working and you just made me part of the story instead of documenting it. Guilt flashed across his handsome features. I didn't realize. God, I really am sorry. Can I make it up to you somehow? Dinner? A proper apology that doesn't involve unexpected kissing? Jasmine studied him carefully. There was something genuine in his expression, something that made her want to believe he wasn't just another entitled rich guy who thought money could fix any problem. But she'd been fooled by charming men before. You can start by explaining. Why one of the most successful entrepreneurs in America is so desperate to escape reporters that he'd kiss a complete stranger. Nathaniel leaned against the wall, suddenly looking tired, because they've turned my life into a circus. Every date, every conversation, every woman I'm seen with becomes front-page news. Last week they claimed I was secretly engaged to a French heiress I've never even met. My investors are getting nervous about the constant tabloid attention. My family keeps calling to ask if any of the rumors are true. I just wanted one night where I could attend an event without being hunted like prey. The vulnerability in his admission touched something in Jasmine. She understood what it felt like to be misunderstood, to have people make assumptions based on appearances rather than reality. And you thought pretending to have a girlfriend would help? In the moment, it seemed brilliant, he said with a self-deprecating laugh. Now I realize I've probably just created an even bigger media storm. By tomorrow, our kiss will be everywhere, and you'll be dragged into a spotlight you never asked for. Jasmine's phone buzzed in her small clutch. She pulled it out to find text messages already flooding in from friends who'd seen photos of the kiss on social media. Her best friend Ruby had sent 5 messages in all caps, demanding details. Too late, she said, showing him the screen. We're already trending. Nathaniel moved closer to look, and Jasmine caught the scent of his cologne. Something woodsy and expensive that made her want to lean in. The photo someone had captured showed them mid-kiss, and even she had to admit it looked incredibly romantic. Her hand on his chest, his fingers gentle on her face, both of them completely lost in the moment. "Oh, you're a beautiful kisser," he said softly, then immediately looked embarrassed. "Sorry, that sounded less creepy in my head." Despite everything, Jasmine laughed. "You're not so bad yourself for a stranger who ambushes people at parties." They stood there in the quiet hallway, the sounds of the gala muffled and distant. Jasmine knew she should be angry, should demand he find a way to fix this mess. Instead, she found herself curious about this man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders despite his success. "What if we made a deal?" Nathaniel said suddenly, his business mind clearly working. "I know this is crazy, but hear me out. What if you pretended to be my girlfriend for a little while? Just long enough for the media frenzy to die down. I'd compensate you generously for your time, and I promise, no more surprise kisses without permission." "You want me to fake date you?" Jasmine couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I know it sounds insane. But think about it. You'd get access to exclusive events, networking opportunities that could help your photography career. I've seen your work online. You're talented, Jasmine. You deserve to have your art in galleries, not just covering society events." He'd looked her up. Something about that both flattered and unnerved her. "How do you know what I want?" "Because I recognize ambition when I see it. You have that same hunger I had when I was starting out, that determination to prove you're more than what people assume." He pulled out a business card and held it out to her. "Think about it. No pressure. But if you're interested, call me tomorrow." Jasmine took the card, her fingers brushing against his. The spark of connection was still there, undeniable and confusing. "This is the craziest thing anyone has ever suggested to me. I specialize in crazy ideas that somehow work out," Nathaniel said with a grin that transformed his face from merely handsome to absolutely devastating. "It's kind of my thing." Before she could respond, voices echoed down the hallway. The reporters had found them. Nathaniel looked at her with raised eyebrows. A silent question. Against every logical thought in her head, Jasmine reached for his hand. "We should probably get back to the party," she said, loud enough for the approaching reporters to hear. "You promised me a dance, remember?" The relief and gratitude in Nathaniel's eyes made her chest tighten. He squeezed her hand gently. "How could I forget?" They walked back into the ballroom together, hand in hand, as cameras flashed and speculation swirled around them like a storm. Jasmine knew her life had just become infinitely more complicated. What she didn't know was whether she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life or taken the first step toward something extraordinary. The morning after the night before, Jasmine's apartment looked exactly like it always did when she got home from an event at 3 in the morning. Her camera bag dumped by the door, her heels kicked off mid-stride across the living room, and her black cat Winston judging her silently from his perch on the bookshelf. "Don't look at me like that," she told the cat as she collapsed onto her thrift store couch. "You wouldn't understand? You've never been kissed by a billionaire?" Winston yawned. Showing his complete lack of interest in her romantic drama, Jasmine pulled out Nathaniel's business card. Running her thumb over the embossed lettering, Blake Technologies, founder and CEO, a San Francisco address in the financial district. Probably some sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern art on the walls. Everything about him screamed money and power, while everything about her small studio apartment screamed struggling artist trying to make rent. Her phone rang, and Ruby's face appeared on the screen. Jasmine considered not answering, but her best friend would just keep calling until she picked up. "Explain," Ruby demanded the moment Jasmine answered. "Explain right now why there are 17 different articles about you kissing. Nathaniel Blake at the Morrison Foundation Gala. 17. Jasmine winced. "That's what you're focusing on? Not the fact that you locked lips with one of Forbes' most eligible bachelors and didn't immediately text me every single detail." Jasmine spent the next 20 minutes explaining the whole surreal evening, from the unexpected kiss to Nathaniel's proposition. Ruby listened with occasional gasps, and one very loud, "He wants to pay you to pretend to be his girlfriend. Are you living in a romance novel?" "It's not romantic. It's a business arrangement," Jasmine protested, though even she didn't sound convinced. "Girl, I saw those photos. That kiss was not business. That was chemistry that could power the entire city grid." Jasmine couldn't argue with that. The kiss had been incredible, the kind of kiss that made her understand why romance novels spent entire pages describing them. But it's crazy, right? "I don't even know him, so get to know him while getting paid and attending exclusive events that could help your career," Ruby said practically. "I'm not saying fall in love with the guy, but what's the harm in taking the opportunity? You're always complaining about being stuck photographing the same boring society events. This could be your chance to break into a different circle." After they hung up, Jasmine sat in the darkness of her apartment, watching the city lights through her window. She thought about the photographs she wanted to take, the stories she wanted to tell through her art. She thought about how every gallery she'd approached had told her she needed more connections, more exposure, more proof that she could succeed. She thought about Nathaniel's eyes, the way they had held both confidence and vulnerability. She thought about his kiss and the way her heart had raced. Maybe Ruby was right. Maybe this was an opportunity too good to pass up, the business of falling the next morning. Jasmine called the number on Nathaniel's card. A professional assistant answered, and within an hour, she was on her way to Blake Technologies headquarters. The building was exactly as she'd imagined. All glass and steel and contemporary design that screamed success. Nathaniel met her in his office, which had the promised floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the Bay Bridge. He'd traded his gala tuxedo for dark jeans and a gray Henley that somehow made him look even more attractive than he had in formal wear. "You came," he said, and she heard genuine surprise in his voice. "I'm considering your offer," Jasmine replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "But we need to establish ground rules." "Absolutely." He gestured to a seating area with comfortable leather chairs. "I've already drafted a contract." Of course he had. Jasmine took the document he offered and began reading. It was surprisingly straightforward. She would attend events with him as his girlfriend for a period of 8 weeks, renewable if both parties agreed. In exchange, she would receive a monthly payment that made her eyes widen, plus expenses for clothing and any other necessities. There were confidentiality clauses and termination conditions, all written in clear, legal language. "This seems very thorough," she said slowly. "I believe in being clear about expectations," Nathaniel replied. "But there's something that's not in the contract, something I want to say directly." He leaned forward, his blue eyes serious. "If at any point this becomes uncomfortable for you, If you want out for any reason, just say the word. No penalties, no questions asked. I dragged you into this situation, and I don't want you to feel trapped. Sincerity in his voice touched her. What about the no kissing without permission rule? A slow smile spread across his face. That's definitely in effect. Though I have to admit, if last night proved anything, it's that we're going to be very convincing as a couple. Heat crept up Jasmine's neck. It was just chemistry. That doesn't mean anything. Right, Nathaniel agreed. But something in his tone suggested he didn't quite believe it either. Just chemistry. Jasmine signed the contract with a flourish, telling herself this was purely a professional decision. The money would allow her to quit 3 of her regular gigs and focus on her art. The connections could open doors that had been closed to her. It was practical, smart, logical. The fact that her pulse quickened every time Nathaniel looked at her was completely irrelevant. So when does this arrangement officially start? She asked. Nathaniel checked his watch, a sleek piece that probably cost more than her entire camera setup. How about right now? I have a lunch meeting with potential investors in an hour. Having you there would make the perfect statement that I'm stable, committed, and not the playboy the tabloids paint me to be. An hour? I'm not dressed for a business lunch. His eyes traveled over her jeans and fitted sweater. You look perfect, but if you're not comfortable, we can schedule something else. Jasmine thought about backing out, about taking more time to prepare. Then she remembered every time she'd hesitated, every opportunity she'd let slip away because she was too scared to take a chance. Let's do it, she said firmly. But you're buying me the most expensive thing on the menu. Nathaniel's laugh was warm and genuine. Deal. Welcome aboard, girlfriend, as they left his office together. His hand resting lightly on the small of her back in a gesture that felt both formal and intimate. Jasmine wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. One kiss from a stranger had turned her carefully planned life completely upside down, and despite all her logical reservations, a part of her couldn't wait to see what happened next, playing the part 3 weeks into their arrangement. Jasmine had attended more exclusive events than she had in her entire photography career. Gallery openings in Nob Hill, charity auctions in Pacific Heights, private dinners with tech moguls who discussed disrupting industries like they were discussing the weather. Through it all, Nathaniel remained the perfect fake boyfriend, attentive without being clingy, affectionate in public, respectful of boundaries in private. The problem was, the boundaries were becoming harder to maintain. You're thinking too loud, Ruby said, sipping her latte across from Jasmine at their favorite coffee shop in the Mission District. I can literally hear your thoughts from here, and they all sound like I'm falling for the fake boyfriend. Jasmine nearly choked on her cappuccino. I am not falling for him. This is strictly professional, right? That's why you smile every time your phone buzzes with a text from him. That's why you spent an hour yesterday telling me about how he remembered. You don't like cilantro and ordered your meal accordingly. That's why you have that dreamy look on your face right now. I do not have a dreamy look, Jasmine protested. But she caught her reflection in the coffee shop window and realized Ruby might have a point. Okay, fine. He's nice and funny, and he actually listens when I talk about photography instead of just pretending to care. But that doesn't mean anything. We have a contract. Ruby raised an eyebrow. Contracts can be renegotiated. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. Nathaniel's text read, Dinner tonight. Place. I promise I can cook better than I can kiss. That's a challenge, by the way. Her heart did that annoying flutter thing it had been doing lately. She typed back, confident. I'll be the judge of that. What time? 7. Dress casual. It's just us. Just us? Those words sent a thrill through her that had nothing to do with their business arrangement. Behind closed doors, Nathaniel's penthouse apartment was everything Jasmine expected and nothing like she imagined. Yes, it had the floor-to-ceiling windows and the million-dollar view of the Golden Gate Bridge. Yes, it had the high-end furniture and the modern art on the walls. But it also had worn paperback books stacked on the coffee table, a collection of vintage vinyl records, and photographs of family and friends rather than professional headshots and awards. It felt like a home, not a showpiece. You look surprised, Nathaniel said, handing her a glass of wine as she took in the space. I expected more chrome and glass. Less personality, she admitted. Most people do. The media has this image of me as some kind of robot tech genius who only cares about algorithms and profit margins. He led her to the kitchen, where ingredients were laid out with the precision of someone who actually knew how to cook. In reality, I'm a guy who likes old jazz records and books. With broken spines and spending Friday nights cooking instead of hitting the club scene, Jasmine watched as he moved around the kitchen with easy confidence, chopping vegetables and explaining his recipe for homemade pasta with a passion that matched how he talked about his company. This version of Nathaniel, relaxed and unguarded, was even more attractive than the polished businessman she'd been appearing with in public. "Can I help?" she offered. "You can keep me company and tell me something real about yourself," he said, glancing up with those blue eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed walls. "We've been doing this for 3 weeks. I know your coffee order and that you hate small talk at parties, but I don't know the important things. Like why you became a photographer instead of doing something more stable." Jasmine leaned against the counter, wine glass in hand, and considered how much to reveal. Something about this setting, about the intimacy of his kitchen and the way he was looking at her, made her want to be honest. "My dad died when I was 16, she said quietly. "Heart attack, completely unexpected. One day he was there cracking jokes at breakfast, and the next day he was gone. After that, I became obsessed with capturing moments, preserving them before they disappeared. Photography was my way of fighting against time, against loss." Nathaniel's hand stilled on the cutting board. "I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. But it also taught me that nothing is guaranteed. You have to chase what matters while you can." She paused, surprised by her own openness. "What about you?" "Why technology?" He resumed chopping, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "Control? Probably. When I was a kid, my family lost everything in a bad investment. We went from comfortable to struggling overnight. I watched my parents' marriage fall apart under the stress. Watched them become strangers to each other. I decided I never wanted to be that vulnerable again." Technology made sense. It was logical, predictable. You put in the work, you got results. In relationships? Jasmine asked softly. "Are they logical and predictable?" "No," he admitted with a rueful smile, "which is probably why I've been terrible at them. I can build a company worth billions, but I can't seem to maintain a relationship longer than a few months. I always choose work, always prioritize the next deal or the next innovation. After a while, people get tired of coming second." The vulnerability in his confession made Jasmine's chest ache. She set down her wine glass and moved closer. "Maybe you just haven't found someone who understands that your work isn't separate from who you are. It's part of you." Nathaniel looked at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Maybe I haven't been looking in the right places." The air between them felt charged, electric. Jasmine was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the way his eyes dropped briefly to her lips before meeting her gaze again. "Nathaniel," she started, not sure what she was going to say. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. She glanced at the screen and saw Ruby's name. "Sorry, I should take this. She only calls during dinner if it's urgent." Ruby's voice was tense when Jasmine answered. "Have you seen the news?" "No. Why?" "Someone leaked photos of you and Nathaniel from that dinner last week at Kakari. But they're not the problem. There's a woman claiming to be his fiancé, and she's saying some pretty nasty things about him. It's all over social media." Jasmine's eyes flew to Nathaniel, who had returned to cooking but was watching her with concern. "I'll call you back." She pulled up her social media and found the posts immediately. A stunning blonde woman named Delilah Grant had posted a series of messages claiming Nathaniel had ghosted her after their engagement, calling him manipulative and saying his new relationship was just a publicity stunt. "What's wrong?" Nathaniel asked, setting down his knife. Jasmine showed him the phone. She watched his expression shift from confusion to anger to something like resignation. "Delilah," he said flatly, "I should have known she'd pull something like this." Ghosts from the past, they moved to the living room, dinner temporarily forgotten. Nathaniel paced while Jasmine sat on the couch, trying to process what she was reading. "Were you engaged to her?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral, even though something uncomfortable twisted in her stomach. "For about 3 months, 2 years ago." He stopped pacing and faced her. "It was a mistake from the start. She wanted the lifestyle, the status, the social media posts. I thought I wanted someone who understood my world. We were both wrong about what we were looking for." "What happened?" "I called off the engagement when I realized we barely knew each other. We'd never talked about anything real, never shared anything meaningful. It was all surface-level glamour with nothing underneath. She took it badly, threatened to go to the press with all kinds of accusations, but eventually her lawyer convinced her that wouldn't end well for her." Jasmine scrolled through more posts. "She's claiming you used her, that this arrangement with me proves you only date women for image purposes." "That's not true." Nathaniel sat down beside her, close but not touching. "Delilah and I were equally guilty of treating our relationship like a transaction. But this with you, it started as an arrangement, yes, but it's become something else. Something real." Her heart stuttered. "Nathaniel, I know we have a contract. I know we agreed this was temporary. But I can't pretend anymore, Jasmine. When we're together, when you laugh at something I say or get excited about a photograph you want to take, when you look at me like I'm just a regular person and not a headline, I feel more myself than I have in years." Jasmine wanted to respond. Wanted to tell him she felt the same way, but her phone buzzed again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Is this Jasmine Rivera?" A woman's smooth, cultured voice came through the speaker. "Yes, who is this?" "Delilah Grant. I think we should meet." The devil you don't know the cafe Delilah chose was in Union Square. Upscale and trendy, the kind of place where a single salad costs as much as Jasmine's weekly grocery budget. Delilah was already there when Jasmine arrived the next afternoon. Looking like she'd stepped off a runway in a white designer suit that probably cost more than Jasmine's camera equipment. "Thank you for coming," Delilah said with a smile that didn't reach her cold green eyes. "I know this must be awkward." "You could say that," Jasmine replied, sitting across from her. "What do you want?" "To give you some friendly advice, woman to woman." Delilah's perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around her espresso cup. "Nathaniel Blake is very good at making women feel special. He did it with me, and he's doing it with you. But it's all performance. He's incapable of real emotional connection. If that's true, why do you care who he's dating?" A flash of anger crossed Delilah's beautiful features before she smoothed it away. "Because I don't want to see another woman make the same mistakes I did." "You seem nice, Jasmine. Working class? Trying to make it in photography? I looked you up. You have talent." "Thanks," Jasmine said dryly. "Get to the point." "The point is, Nathaniel will use you until you're no longer useful. This whole girlfriend act is just another business strategy to him. Clean up his image, make him seem more human to investors in the media. Once he's achieved that goal, you'll be discarded like last season's fashion." Jasmine studied the woman across from her. Delilah was stunning, sophisticated, exactly the kind of woman who seemed to belong in Nathaniel's world. But there was something brittle about her, something desperate beneath the polished exterior. "Did he discard you?" Jasmine asked quietly. "Or did you lose something you thought you could control?" Delilah's composure cracked slightly. "I'm trying to help you. No, you're trying to manipulate me because you can't stand that Nathaniel moved on." Jasmine stood, gathering her bag. "Whatever happened between you two is your business. But my relationship with Nathaniel is mine. And contrary to what you think, it's real." She walked out before Delilah could respond, her heart pounding. The declaration had surprised even her. When had the arrangement stopped feeling like business and started feeling like the most genuine connection she'd ever had? Meeting the family, Nathaniel called her that evening as she was editing photos in her apartment. Winston had claimed her lap, purring contentedly while she worked. "How did it go with Delilah?" he asked without preamble. "She tried to convince me you're using me." Standard jealous ex-girlfriend playbook. Jasmine scratched behind Winston's ears. "I told her what we have is real." Silence on the other end of the line, then. "Is it? Real, I mean?" I think it stopped being fake a while ago, Jasmine admitted. At least for me. She heard him exhale. Could almost picture him running a hand through his hair the way he did when he was processing something important. My parents are having a dinner party this weekend. It's my mom's birthday, and they've been asking to meet you. It's going to be the full family interrogation, cousins and aunts and everyone with opinions about my life. You can absolutely say no, but I'd really like you there, meeting the family. That was serious. That was real in a way that photo shoots and public events weren't. Will there be cake? Jasmine asked. He laughed, and the sound made her smile. The best cake you've ever had. My mom orders from this Italian bakery in North Beach, and I'm in. The Blake family home in Presidio Heights was a beautiful Victorian painted lady, warm and welcoming in a way that immediately put Jasmine at ease. Nathaniel's mother, Patricia, answered the door with a wide smile and pulled Jasmine into a hug before she could even introduce herself. You're even prettier than the photos, Patricia said warmly. And thank you for making my son smile again. I'd started to think he'd forgotten how. Nathaniel's father, James, was quieter but equally kind, shaking her hand with genuine warmth. Inside, the house was filled with family, and Jasmine found herself swept into conversations about photography, San Francisco history, and whether the Giants had a shot at the playoffs this year. Nathaniel's younger sister, Amanda, cornered her in the kitchen while helping set the table. So are you actually dating my brother, or is this one of his elaborate schemes? Amanda asked bluntly. Because I love him, but he tends to approach relationships like business deals. Jasmine appreciated the directness. It started as an arrangement, but it's become something more. At least I think it has. Amanda studied her for a moment, then grinned. Good, he needs someone real. Someone who sees past the money, and the success to the guy who still cries. During sappy movies and donates anonymously to animal shelters because he's too embarrassed to be seen as soft. He cries during movies. Only the really emotional ones. He ugly cried during Up. Made me swear never to tell anyone. Amanda paused. I just told you, which means I think you're going to be around for a while. Don't make me regret trusting you with that information. During dinner, Jasmine watched Nathaniel interact with his family. He was different here, more relaxed. Laughing at his dad's terrible jokes and teasing his sister about her latest dating disaster. This was the real Nathaniel, the person beneath the CEO persona. And she found herself falling even harder. After dinner, his mother insisted on showing Jasmine embarrassing childhood photos, much to Nathaniel's horror. Patricia pulled out albums filled with pictures of a gap-toothed boy with scraped knees and a mischievous grin. He was always building things, Patricia said fondly. Even as a little boy, he couldn't see something broken without trying to fix it. That hasn't changed, Jasmine murmured, thinking of how he'd tried to fix his media problem by creating their arrangement, how he'd somehow fixed something broken in her too without even trying, as they drove back to her apartment that night. Nathaniel reached over and took her hand. Thank you for tonight, he said quietly. For being yourself with them. For making my mom laugh. For not running away when Amanda showed you that photo of me in the third-grade talent show. The one where you dressed up as Einstein and sang about the theory of relativity. I was a weird kid, you were adorable. Jasmine squeezed his hand. Your family is wonderful, Nathaniel. They really love you. They loved you too. My mom is already planning our wedding, just so you know. She texted me while you were talking to my dad about his vintage car collection. They pulled up in front of Jasmine's building. Neither of them moved to get out. Jasmine, Nathaniel said, turning to face her. I know we have 5 more weeks on our contract, but I need to tell you something. This stopped being an arrangement for me weeks ago. When I'm with you, I forget about the reporters and the investors and all the pressure. You make me remember why I built my company in the first place. Not for money or status, but because I wanted to create something meaningful. Nathaniel, she breathed. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that whatever happens when our 8 weeks are up, what I feel for you is real. You're real, and you've become the best part of my day. Jasmine leaned across the console and kissed him. This kiss was different from the one at the gala. That had been spontaneous, unexpected, charged with surprise. This was a conscious choice, a declaration. A promise of something neither of them fully understood but both wanted to explore. when they finally broke apart. Both breathing hard, Jasmine rested her forehead against his. "For the record," she whispered, "this became real for me too. Probably around the time you remembered my coffee order and definitely by the time you cooked me dinner and told me about your family. So we're doing this? Really doing this?" "I guess we are." They sat in his car for another hour, talking about everything and nothing, reluctant to let the night end. When Jasmine finally went inside, she found Winston waiting by the door with an expression that clearly said about time. "Don't judge me," she told the cat. "I'm in completely over my head, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm happy." "I'm really genuinely happy," Winston meowed, which she chose to interpret as approval. When the facade cracks the article appeared in the morning, splashed across the homepage of one of the city's biggest gossip blogs. The headline made Jasmine's coffee turn to acid in her stomach. "Tech billionaires love scam. Jasmine Rivera paid to play girlfriend." Her hands shook as she read the piece, which included photos of her signing the contract in Nathaniel's office, bank statements showing the monthly payments, and quotes from an anonymous source close to the situation detailing their arrangement. Everything was there. Every private detail of their agreement exposed for public consumption. Her phone exploded with texts. Ruby, her mother, photographer, colleagues, even people she barely knew, reaching out with questions or judgment or mockery. The comments on the article were brutal, calling her a gold digger, a fraud, suggesting she'd seduced a vulnerable billionaire for money. She was still staring at her phone in shock when someone knocked on her door. Through the peephole, she could see Nathaniel, his face haggard like he hadn't slept. "I'm so sorry," were the first words out of his mouth when she opened the door. "Jasmine, I'm so incredibly sorry. I think I know who leaked this, and I'm going to fix it." Exit. Her voice came out sharper than intended. "How are you going to fix this, Nathaniel? Everyone thinks I'm some kind of con artist." My phone hasn't stopped buzzing. I have colleagues questioning whether any of my success was legitimate or if it was all because of you. How exactly do you fix that? I'll make a statement. I'll explain that the arrangement was my idea, that you were doing me a favor. That makes it worse. Jasmine fought back tears of frustration. That makes me sound even more pathetic. Like I was so desperate for your approval that I'd agree to something like this. Nathaniel reached for her, but she stepped back. The hurt that flashed across his face made her chest ache. But she was too raw, too exposed to comfort him right now. "Not need space," she said quietly. "I need to figure out how to deal with this without you trying to fix everything." "Yes." "Let me help. You've helped enough." The words came out cruel, and she saw him flinch. "Just go, Nathaniel." He stood there for a long moment, looking like he wanted to argue, to push back, to solve the problem the way he solved everything. Then his shoulders sagged in defeat. "Okay," he said softly. "But for what it's worth, the last few weeks with you have been the most real thing in my life. That wasn't fake, no matter what any article says." After he left, Jasmine collapsed on her couch and let herself cry. Winston jumped up beside her, head-butting her arm in his version of comfort. She'd been stupid to think she could play in Nathaniel's world without getting burned. She'd been naive to believe that fairy tale endings happened to girls like her, the woman. Behind the leak, Jasmine spent 2 days hiding in her apartment, ignoring calls and surviving on delivery food and Winston's judgmental stares. On the third day, Ruby showed up with coffee and determination written all over her face. "Enough wallowing," Ruby announced, letting herself in with the spare key. "Get dressed. We're going to figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out. My reputation is destroyed, and Nathaniel's probably relieved he doesn't have to pretend anymore." Ruby gave her a look that would have withered a lesser person. "You really believe that? Girl, I've watched you fall for this man over the past 6 weeks. And more importantly, I've watched him fall for you. That wasn't pretend. It doesn't matter. It's over. It matters. And it's only over if you give up." Ruby pulled up something on her phone and showed it to Jasmine. "Look at this." It was Nathaniel's social media account. He'd posted a long statement taking full responsibility for the arrangement, explaining that he'd been desperate to escape media harassment and had made a poor decision that affected Jasmine unfairly. But then the statement continued. "However, What started as a business arrangement became something I never expected. Jasmine Rivera is one of the most talented, genuine, and remarkable people I've ever met. She has challenged me, supported me, and shown me what it means to connect with someone on a real level. The money she was paid was for her time at events, but everything else, every laugh, every conversation, every moment of connection, that was real. I fell in love with her, and I'm not ashamed to admit it publicly. She deserves better than the cruel speculation and judgment she's receiving. If anyone wants to criticize the arrangement, direct that criticism at me. Jasmine was trying to help someone in need, and she ended up teaching me what genuine relationship looks like. Jasmine's vision blurred with tears. He said he loves me. Publicly. To millions of people. That man just put his heart on the line for you. Ruby sat beside her. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Jasmine could answer, her phone rang. An unknown number, but something made her answer it.
Oh, Miss Rivera?
This is Catherine Morrison, owner of the Morrison Gallery. I'd like to discuss showing your work. Jasmine's breath caught. The Morrison Gallery was one of the most prestigious in San Francisco. I don't understand. I saw your photographs. The ones you've been posting on social media throughout your time with Nathaniel Blake. The candid moments. The way you captured genuine emotion, it's extraordinary. The controversy around your relationship actually drove people to look at your work, and what they found was talent. Pure, undeniable talent. Would you be interested in a meeting? After she hung up, Jasmine stared at her phone in disbelief. Ruby grinned. See? Sometimes the worst things lead to the best opportunities. Now, are you going to call that man back? Or are you going to let pride ruin the best thing that ever happened to you? The truth in plain sight, Jasmine called Nathaniel, but he didn't answer. She tried 3 more times with the same result. Panic started to set in. What if she'd pushed him away too hard? What if his public declaration had been a goodbye rather than a plea? Ruby drove her to Blake Technologies, but the receptionist informed them that Nathaniel wasn't in the office. He wasn't at his penthouse either. Jasmine was starting to feel desperate when she remembered something. He'd told her during one of their late-night conversations. The Japanese tea garden, she told Ruby. Golden Gate Park. He said he goes there when he needs to. Think they found him sitting on a bench near the koi pond, staring at the water like it held answers to questions he hadn't figured out how to ask yet. That was quite a statement you made, Jasmine said softly. Approaching slowly, he looked up, surprise and hope warring in his expression. I meant every word. I know. I'm sorry I shut you out. I was scared and hurt, and I took it out on you when none of this was really your fault. Nathaniel stood, closing the distance between them. It was my fault. I created the situation that put you at risk. I should have been more careful. Should have protected you better. Stop trying to fix everything, Jasmine said, but there was no heat in her words. You can't control everything, Nathaniel. Sometimes life is messy and complicated, and things don't work out the way you planned. But that doesn't mean they're not worth fighting for. What are you saying? Jasmine took a deep breath, feeling Ruby's encouraging presence behind her. I'm saying that I fell in love with you too. Not with the billionaire or the CEO, but with the guy who cooks homemade pasta and cries during emotional movies and remembers that I don't like cilantro. I love the way you see the world as a series of problems to solve. And I love even more when you realize some things can't be solved. Only experienced, Jasmine. But I need you to understand something. I'm not going to fit neatly into your world. I'm going to embarrass you at fancy dinners and probably offend important investors with my opinions. I'm going to prioritize my art over social climbing. And I'm going to call you out when you're being too much of a CEO and not enough of a person. That sounds perfect, Nathaniel said, a smile breaking across his face like sunrise. That sounds absolutely perfect. One more thing. The Morrison Gallery wants to show my work. They found me because of the controversy, but they want me because of my talent. I'm not going to hide or be ashamed of how that opportunity came to me. Our story might have started as a business arrangement, but it became something real. And I'm not going to apologize for that. You shouldn't. Should never apologize for being extraordinary. Nathaniel pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. I love you, Jasmine Rivera. I love your talent and your passion and the way you see beauty in ordinary moments. I love that you're not afraid to challenge me, and I love that you make me want to be better than I am. I love you too, she whispered. Even though you're complicated and stubborn and sometimes too focused on fixing things that might not be broken, are we really doing this? A real relationship, not a contract, not an arrangement. I think we've been doing this for a while now. We were just too scared to admit it. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Behind them, Ruby cheered, and an elderly couple walking past smiled at them knowingly. The koi continued their lazy circles in the pond, and the Japanese maple trees rustled in the breeze. And everything felt right in a way that had nothing to do with planning or contracts or carefully managed images. 6 months later, the U. Morrison Gallery opening was everything Jasmine had dreamed of, and more. Her photographs lined the walls, each one telling a story of genuine human connection. There were shots from charity galas, but also images from her neighborhood, from family dinners, from quiet moments that captured the beauty of everyday life. Nathaniel stood beside her, his hand in hers, as art collectors and critics circulated through the space. He'd wanted to buy several pieces, but she'd refused to let him. You're not allowed to purchase my art, she'd told him firmly. It's a conflict of interest. I'm your boyfriend. Everything is a conflict of interest. Exactly. So you get to appreciate it for free at home, and other people get to actually buy it. Preston Whitmore, Nathaniel's business partner, approached with a champagne glass in hand. Congratulations, Jasmine. These photographs are remarkable. You have a real gift for capturing truth. Thank you. That means a lot. You know what I love most about your photos? What? This one, he nodded toward, a black and white image in the center of the gallery. It showed a man looking at a woman with such open adoration that it made viewers catch their breath. The man was Nathaniel, captured during a moment at his family's house when he thought no one was watching. The love in his expression was unmistakable, vulnerable, real. That's my favorite too, Jasmine admitted, because it shows the truth we were both afraid to admit. We were already in love. We just needed time to be brave enough to say it. Ruby appeared with Jasmine's mother in tow. Your mom wants to know if Nathaniel has proposed yet. Mom? Jasmine felt her face heat up. What? I'm just asking. He's a good man, and you're clearly in love. Why wait? Nathaniel grinned. I like your mother's directness. Don't encourage her. The evening continued with sales and congratulations, and critics praising her unique perspective. As the gallery began to empty, Jasmine found herself standing in front of that photograph of Nathaniel again. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist.
What are you thinking?
He asked. I'm thinking about that night at the gala, when you kissed me. If someone had told me then that one kiss would change my entire life, I wouldn't have believed them. Would you have done anything differently? Jasmine turned in his arms, looking up at this man who had become her partner, her best friend, her love. Not a single thing. The confusion, the controversy, the fear, all of it led here. To this gallery, to this moment, to us. To us, Nathaniel echoed, and kissed her while her photographs watched. Silent witnesses to the truth that everyone could now see. What had started as performance had become the most authentic thing in both their lives. Outside the gallery, the city lights of San Francisco glittered like stars brought down to earth. Somewhere in the Mission District, a cat named Winston was judging someone else's life choices. In Presidio Heights, Patricia Blake was already planning a family dinner to celebrate Jasmine's success. And in Golden Gate Park, the koi continued their endless circles. Knowing what humans often forgot, that the most beautiful things in life can't be planned or controlled. Only experienced and treasured, Jasmine and Nathaniel walked out of the gallery hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next together. No contracts, no arrangements, no pretending. Just two people who had found something real in the most unexpected way. One kiss from a stranger that had questioned everything they thought they knew about love and taught them what it truly meant to be seen, understood, and cherished.